The 2024 Fiat 500e, this cute piece of Italian engineering, is exactly that. It's not designed by Americans for an American audience, but they are bringing it to the United States, and it costs $34,000 as tested, which makes this just as expensive as something like a base model Model 3 and a variety of different hybrid-powered internal combustion small cars. So if you're buying this vehicle, you're going to be making a lot of excuses for it. I'd say that right off the bat. Now, what is it? This is an entry-level Fiat electric car. It has a very small battery pack at less than 44 kilowatt hours. You have a total usable range, best case scenario, of 150 miles. This looks exactly like a Fiat 500 for the next generation. It's very charming looking, and they did their best in the interior space to carry on some of that charm. They have addressed some of the deficiencies of the last model. The old generation Fiat 500 had issues with door handles snapping off, so they've gotten rid of that. Now it's a button. The interior space is largely physical, easy to use, and there's a great visibility. The front seats, despite being cloth, are reasonably comfortable. The drive modes are easy to understand. For the most part, you have normal, range, and Sherpa mode. Sherpa mode is essentially the turn everything off, try to eke out as much range as possible. You have a small trunk space, you do have back seats, but no one's fitting back there. So with all of that said, let's go ahead into the shop and put this thing up on the lift.
Hey, how you doing? Jack's big into these high-end vehicles, high-tech vehicles like the Fiat 500e. Who wouldn't want one? I'm more into brand integrations, and it started at an early age for me. I made my first million at 17 working fast food, and here we are today. Problem was, hit a bump in the road. COVID-19 hit. And I could no longer go to my favorite restaurants like Red Lobster to get that shrimp scampi dripping off my lips. Or I couldn't get my 5 for 5 from Arby's, and I was door dashing everything, and a delicious $10 meal turned into a $100 excursion. So I had to stop myself, and my family was concerned. They're like, Bill, go to the doctor for God's sakes. You know, you can't be doing well. I was losing my hair, losing muscle mass. So I went to my doctor. He's like, Bill, you know, you're a prime candidate here for diabetes.
Diabetes.
Thank you, Wilford. Diabetes.
What are you gonna do? You gotta make some changes. So I went home, my girlfriend looks at the portal, she looks at the lab results, she's like, you know, you're half the man you used to be. Look at these changes. You're not 18 anymore. She's like, I'm gonna leave you. Like, all right, let's give this a chance. She recommended Factor. I paid for it for 8 months. She ate half my food, of course. But the thing is it allowed me to sit at my desk longer. Not only could I have 35 different choices for food, it delivered to me, but I could sit at my desk and do more work. And Jack was delighted by this. We're talking 7 days a week, 15 hours a day, and I was able to create some of the best videos ever made. 2020 Chevrolet Equinox, literally groundbreaking work. Also, the Total Washlet bidet system. I mean, these are things that have revolutionized the industry. It's the videos like that, by sitting there for that long, I was able to create. And when I'm in a nursing home thinking about my life's work, these are the things that are going to stand out. Obviously, on the outside, you're looking at how does this guy do this? And for me, it's just having a meal at my desk working. But I think there's a benefit to having it delivered to your house as well and preparing that meal. You know, you're taking 2 minutes, and most great things in life can be done in 2 minutes. Let's be honest. That's how I've lived my love life myself. So having that meal prepared in 2 minutes, having a satisfactory experience, being at my desk, being more productive is also a key. And you look at layoffs. You know, what company doesn't want you working 7 days a week, 15 hours a day? If you can stay at your desk, keep on working, you can stay connected, you can live in your car, the chances of being laid off are a couple percent lower if you're there all the time. And having Factor, having a meal prep like this, having quality food that you're digesting is a big bonus. And I think you're gonna be more of a person for that as well. But you can head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code SAVAGEGEESE50 to get 50% off your first Factor box and 20% off your next month of orders. That's code SAVAGEGEESE50 at factor75.com to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month of orders.
Now, I have not seen skills like that with a microwave since I was in Italy. And just like those skills, this vehicle behind us, which is just as premium, comes from the land of Italy. This Fiat 500e has a 87 kilowatt electric motor, which is about 117 horsepower, and has a 42 kilowatt hour battery with 37.3 usable. Let's talk about the body. This is the next generation STLA platform, which is larger than the previous generation SCCS vehicle that dates back over a decade. This time around, the platform is EV only, which means it has packaging benefits for space and scalability. The smaller pack size also means a curb weight of around 3,000 pounds. As Mark is going to talk about, and as I've already mentioned, this was clearly not designed for our market. In fact, we got it much later than Europe. This is a small city car. It competes with things like the Mini Cooper, but for the sake of the US market, you can argue it's very expensive. It's $34,000, and this is the base trim. It goes up to nearly 40, and for that, you are getting some serious competition. This is a strut front, torsion beam rear, and it drives like a small city car. It's very maneuverable, it's got quick steering, and despite its diminutive size, it's actually relatively large on the inside. It goes 0 to 60 in about a little over 9 seconds, and obviously if you're doing highway speeds, you're gonna be running into the range issue. It does not charge relatively quick either. You're looking at an 85 kilowatt max charging speed, which again, in the modern day of EVs is not all that competitive. So that said, I think it's time for us to go take this for a quick drive with Mark around the mean streets of Illinois. Mark, this is not Italia, but we are in Sherpa mode.
Derpa? Is it Derpa? Or?
No, it's Sherpa mode, Mark.
What's that mean?
It means, I don't actually know.
God, you're so American.
About as American as Olive Garden. There we go.
that was flat out.
That was flat out in this bad boy. This is an interesting car in that it clearly was not designed for our country, but they are selling it here at full price, which makes this more complicated, I think. Maybe if we were in Europe or Germany or Italy where the roads are tight and you wanted this as a city car, you could maybe excuse the fact that it was $34,000 and it only got 150 miles of range. But out here in the United States, at least where we live, it becomes a more difficult proposition.
I mean, let's cut through the bullshit. I mean, this car is a compliance car for whatever market they're throwing it in, right? They have to have EVs in certain countries.
Yes.
And at least Fiat here in the United States is essentially dead. Small cars are dead here, and I'm not saying that there's. What I like about this car is the fact that there's
charming.
nothing like it.
Yeah.
To get over the charming part is that we don't have any small cars left, none to like this. And when you sit in the driver's side or passenger seat, this does not feel like a small car. It feels like it's 3 times the size of what it is in terms of visibility, headroom. They've maximized what they can do in the front space, but you can put it anywhere. Like I literally parked it in my garage to charge it, which you're going to be doing a lot if you're putting, but you park it next to even a regular SUV, and you could fit 3 of these in my garage where I can barely fit 1. And I really miss
the packaging is great.
The packaging is incredible, and if you're in an area or a region where you don't have any space, namely not in the United States, I could see why these cars are so special for those markets. But here,
yeah, if you're street parking, you have to, like I was just in Spain, and there was no parking anywhere.
Right.
Perfect vehicle for that.
Yeah. I love that part of it, and it's pretty practical. It's pretty usable, and with the battery pack in this car, it rides way better
than the other one.
The other one, the Fiats of the past with internal combustion, and you don't have the internal combustion phobia of this brand of like, when is it going to break? And, granted, I don't know how the battery pack degradation is going to be in some of the electric motors they've chosen and all the other electronics, but honestly, I'd feel a lot safer buying this. But the elephant in the room is it's not competitive at all in terms of price.
No.
I mean, nobody in their right mind is choosing this unless you're getting it for nothing on a lease. And you have Ioniq 5s, you have, to your point, the Model 3, which you're going to take every time over this for the price. So it really doesn't have a place here in terms of being an EV, and then let alone the 150-mile range. You literally are going to be a city dweller or somebody that's going to drive this like a golf cart. So,
in the depreciation part of this thing, I mean, the brand historically for Fiat has been horrific depreciation. Yeah. Horrific. And the fact that this isn't cheap. You look at the plastics and everything, if you didn't know, you'd be like, oh, this is a $23,000 car. And that's what it feels like, other than the EV premiumness of the drivetrain.
Right.
And I feel like if you're stuck buying this thing at 34 grand in like 3 years, it's gonna be 15 and you're gonna lose your ass out.
Yeah, this reminds me a lot of like the early EVs I drove, like the Kia Soul, the first EV, and then the Ioniq and all of that. Like, this brand is just literally experimenting putting a battery pack in here for compliance purposes. It's not like this is not something that they built from the ground up to be an EV. And while it is better as an EV, I will say...
Yeah, it rides better than the regular Fiat 500 by a mile.
Yes, it handles great. It rides really well. It's pretty well isolated. It's pretty damn quiet, too,
Yeah,
honestly.
it is. It's very quiet.
I mean, you can't really knock this car for what they tried to do, but the problem, again, like we beat a dead horse, is it's too much money. And when you look at what, and I'm not, obviously I do not want Chinese electric cars in this country because I know what it's going to do to the car economy. It's going to set a new precedent of lowering the quality and everything down to nothing, and people are going to expect cars for nothing. This is a perfect example where this car is not competitive at all in price and feature set, and this is where the Chinese will absolutely obliterate this brand because they can get this same thing done for far less money.
Yeah.
And if you're somebody,
if you look at some of the BYDs in Europe, for example, I mean that's a really compelling argument, geopolitical reasons aside, to buy something like that over this.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I feel bad because I really like this car. I like the small car idea and the efficiency of it, that we don't need everything to be big. But I mean, you can't recommend this for the price that it is unless you really need a small car. And are you really willing to pay a massive premium for a small car that's an EV with no range to have this?
Really high depreciation.
Yeah, it's a really hard sell. Really hard sell.
So with that, let's end on the final thoughts, Mark.
All right, Jack. Final thoughts on the Fiat 500e Red Edition. This is essentially the launch version for North America, and they've said in no uncertain terms that this is a limited production vehicle. It will not be sold in high quantities. Availability will be limited, which is where we're coming up with the idea that this is a compliance car, namely for California. The brand needs an EV, so here it is. Now, what is it? What is Red? What's that tie up with Red? I'm gonna let them tell you.
By the way, just as Cinquecento is a global automotive icon, well, the co-founder of Red is an icon too.
I've just got a message, so actually it's Bono. Let's see what he has to say.
We're driving AIDS off the planet. That's right. Gonna drive AIDS off the planet.
So now you know. Driving this car, price tag aside, range aside, I really enjoyed it because it's a dying breed of vehicle, at least in our country. It's small, it's compact, it fits everywhere, it's quiet. The new EV architecture feels really solid. It's fun to drive. The visibility is really good for it. And I think it's a great change for somebody that doesn't want or need a big vehicle. You can park it anywhere, right? I mean, that's the joy of this, and it doesn't feel like a total shit box. The updates to the interior are well executed. But here's the sad story of this, right? In a country with poor charging infrastructure, I had this thing in my garage charging half the time because just doing 2 commutes in it decimated the battery. Your cold range degradation is going to hurt it even more. So again, you're living in the confines of that, which I would say would not be an issue if we're talking about a $20,000 car. But at $35,000, $40,000, you got Ioniq 5s. You got the Tesla Model 3 and all these sub versions of those cars coming out. And if you're a manufacturer and you're worried about the Chinese, this is a perfect example of where they're going to come in and absolutely decimate your company. They're going to be able to deliver these subsidized, low-cost, low-quality EVs for that price tag that people are really looking for. This is where Fiat could really excel, but apparently they can't get the price down enough to make that work. So I'm going to leave it at that. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next video.